Hi guys, it's Christian from Lost in Discovery and welcome back to my One Piece journey. Today we are going to be talking about Jaya all the way through to the end of Skypiea. I think this is going to be the highest amount of total chapters I'm covering in one video today, and I have a lot to say about these two arcs. Whilst this saga probably isn't my favourite so far, I think it's the first time I've had the most strong opinions on One Piece on my journey. Don't worry, there's no sort of I'm off the series or anything. I'm actually more into it than I've ever been before. For the first time, I kind of feel like I have a little bit more to say, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys about it today. So I really want to talk in this video about how I felt about these arcs, the strongest moments, some things I struggled with, what I thought of it all coming together, but it's really hard to cover all the details and all my favorite moments throughout. So this weekend, like we do at the end of every saga, I'm going live and you can ask me questions, I can talk to you about more details, and we can get more deep into the plot and more nuanced moments. As for now, let's just get on with my thoughts from Jaya to Skypiea. So we start off heading to the island of Jaya, and I have to tell you, this arc did so much work in expanding the world for me, and it was almost overwhelming. In about 20 chapters, we get so many huge characters in the world just thrown at us. Oda's just throwing us, oh, here are the 5 elders, here's Mihawk again, here's Shanks, here's Ace, here's Buggy. We got shown so many classic characters and so many big high bounty targets just being plopped into the story and just piquing our interest. It was just so exciting after Alabasta to just get a bigger sense of the world and just to feel like, wow, we're really progressing here. I'm getting a greater sense of what this overall story is going to have in it. And then right after that, it really shrinks down and starts to begin the sort of contained to a certain degree story of Jaya and Skypiea. Jaya definitely feels like the prologue or the setup for Skypiea, and I freaking loved the way he did this. In classic One Piece fashion, we arrive on a new island, meet a lot of new characters, and also Blackbeard. And Blackbeard has D in his name. See what I mean? There are just so many. Okay, let's just keep going. So we're introduced to Mont Black Cricket, who is a descendant from Noland the Liar. And I really liked how they focused on Usopp in this section. How Usopp kind of had interesting reactions to how people were talking about Noland, because every time a liar is brought up, they all just look at Usopp like, yeah, don't you relate to this? But I liked how Usopp was trying to keep some of his pride while still identifying with Noland and being into his story. And we learned about Noland's story that is sort of like a folktale in the North Blue, which Sanji mentions he grew up hearing. At this point, I thought it was quite a cool story, that the story of El Dorado, the story of a city in the sky. They're just really tapping into that sense of adventure that One Piece is really known for, and it's just, as soon as I saw the map of Skypiea, I was just so hyped to actually get up there and see what's happening. It's never that easy, right? So we're introduced to freaking Bellamy the hyena. What an absolute Chad. This guy was just typical villain, not too nuanced, just a bit of a guy who's looking at Luffy's bounties. And, well, before he saw his bounty, he totally underestimated them, but only became interested in them once he saw the $30 million bounty. An interesting conversation was brought up about people's dreams, seeing how the Straw Hats and Luffy stand up for what they believe, especially in that bar fight scene where Luffy and Zoro decide, you know what, it's not worth it, we're just going to take the hits and move on because we're so far beyond what this guy is saying. What do we have to prove to him? But the way it concludes with literally Luffy leaving a dent in this guy's face from the power of his punch, which I believe he didn't even use any gum powers. It was a very satisfying, like, shut the hell up moment from Luffy, which there are plenty of in this series, and I never get tired of seeing Luffy just being like, you know what, I've had enough. Bam, and it's just over. Very satisfying. A moment I recognized here, once we are introduced to Blackbeard, who I just feel like, and Whitebeard with all the nurses around him and the mess. Okay, we're going to talk a lot about that in the live stream. Lots of interesting interactions between Blackbeard and Luffy. They liked exactly the opposite food at the bar, but then he agreed he liked the same food once he left. As they were leaving, Nami says something to Zoro like, oh, you saw that guy. Luffy and Zoro were kind of like, no, it wasn't he, it was they. And it just brought me back to when in Alabasta, Zoro had this moment of focus, almost like the mantra we saw in Skypiea, where he could kind of hear people. And I'm wondering if they sensed something else about Blackbeard, if there's sort of like a double soul thing going on with Blackbeard. I don't know, it's getting into a bit crazy theory territory here, but I just feel like he's got the D in his name. There is a relationship to be had there with Luffy and Gol D Roger and Buggy D Clown, you know how it goes. But let's just say my interest has been piqued with that, and I can't wait to see how these bigger players start to come back into the story. In hindsight, Jaya gets better once you know the true history of Noland and Kalgara and how all of that goes, which just, it's going to bring a tear to my eye if I keep talking about it. We'll get to that soon. Let's go up to the sky and see what happened in Skypiea. Honestly, the whole way the Straw Hats get up to Skypiea and discover this beautiful landscape and these amazing islands and these amazing cities just captured the sense of childlike wonder that I absolutely adore One Piece for. It really just took time to allow the reader to be with the Straw Hats and just be amazed and impressed that we're going on another adventure, we're not giving up on our dreams, and we're just going to somewhere completely different. With Skypiea, I think it feels quite separate as you're reading it from the greater story of One Piece, and I feel like that can be viewed as a pro or a con depending on what kind of reader you are. At the beginning, when we're going up there and we're discovering this new place, I was so happy just to be around with the crew and just enjoying this amazing time in a new place. And at the beginning, it did feel quite separate because I wasn't really sure how it was going to connect to Jaya besides helping Cricket and sort of seeing if Noland was telling the truth all of this time. I loved just seeing the world of Skypiea, and I loved seeing the joy and excitement and the different reactions of all the crew members. Usopp's terrified, Luffy's joyous, Nami's sort of understanding the clouds and the weather, Zoro's just looking about what he needs to kill, and Usopp's just seeing what he can, not Usopp, Sanji's just seeing what he can cook up. And Chopper's just like, oh my god, whenever, I love that, whenever anyone does anything, Chopper's like, yeah, oh my god, you're so cool, you're amazing. Chopper's just pure joy to read and watch. And we have our new crew member, Robin, who I low-key have a massive crush on, I'm not gonna lie. Robin is an interesting addition to the Straw Hats. She's quite aloof, she's not even referring to anyone really by their name. She's like navigator, stretchy guy. She's still sussing things out, and I don't know if she's fully showing herself yet. I think she's just kind of watching the Straw Hats and seeing what they're all about, but she seems like pleased enough to go along with them. Really, the highlight for me with Robin is her devil fruit power is easily my favorite, especially the way Oda is getting so creative with it so early. Usually you see a new power, and when they use it, you're like, okay, of course they use it in that way, or they use it in that way, and much later in a series you get to see really creative uses of powers in unique and interesting ways. But straight away, Usopp falls down through the sky, Luffy reaches down as the rubber boy he is to pick him up, and Robin like spawns eyeballs on Luffy's arm to see where Usopp fell, and it just gets your imagination going with all the possibilities of Robin's power, and it just gets me excited to see how much ass she's going to kick as the series continues. And I'm not going to lie, coming out of Alabasta, I kind of viewed a lot of the characters in Skypiea as like a discount or like dollar store versions of like the VV types. And look, honestly, Conus is no Vivi, and I felt like sometimes it felt a little bit like some of the roles in the Skypiea world had very strong parallels to the Alabasta characters, and it was hard not to compare. But once I stopped doing that and just tried to take in Skypiea for what it was, I had a much better time with it. And honestly, the world, the dial technology, like spend as much time as you want explaining that, Oda, because I had a blast seeing how everything worked for the society in Skypiea. And by building up the society and the world, you really care about these people, and that's the best time to introduce a villain. And the way in my translation it says Eneru, but like talking to friends who are big One Piece fans, they say Enel, so I'll say Enel because I feel like that's what people say. I love the way they introduce Enel as Kami. We're seeing the lightning come down. It's very mysterious as to who he is. And when that guy shows up, he does not hold back. He gives you a bloody impression, doesn't he? More on Enel later. Let's talk about my boy, the Sky Knight Ganfor. Honestly, when Ganfor showed up, I didn't know what to make of him with his horse slash Pegasus slash polka dot creature thing. I just found him to be such an endearing character. He was striving for peace, and again, Oda has really built a world with real stakes, real dynamics, real history, real people, and he did it in such a way to make you really care about what was happening here. And at this point, we had a lot of the Straw Hats through one way or another going into different places, and I love when Oda does this. It really allows our characters to finally have individual moments and individual moments to shine. And honestly, Skypiea was such a comedic arc. When they're all doing the Tarzan vine swing, I mean, I don't know if I'm just that easily entertained, but I loved it. It's great. And this honestly leads to probably the weakest part of Skypiea for me. I'm not gonna lie, I found a little bit of the chunk in the middle to drag on for a little bit too long. What this part really was about was when the boys are going up against the vassals, or Enel's sort of like henchmen, before actually getting to like the final boss. I felt like these fights, whilst entertaining and whilst cool and a good and a good use of powers and teamwork and stuff like that, I didn't really care about the vassals. I wasn't really invested in who they were. They were sort of just goofy One Piece villains that I knew that they were going to get beaten. And whilst there was some cool character moments in there, this was the only part where Skypiea kind of dragged out a little bit long for me. And even in hindsight, if I was to read that again, I still feel like I would struggle a little bit with how much time was spent on those battles. Not a huge con, but it was the moment where I was a bit like, oh man, Skypiea is like, when's it gonna pick up? Very shortly after, it really did. So let's talk about that. One of the highlights to me when all the crew was separated was poor little Chopper, when he's left to keep the ship safe, and he's absolutely terrified. And when everyone came back and he's like, oh guys, I lost the map, I'm so sorry, and they're like, who cares about the map, Chopper, we can replace that, but we can't replace you. Anything with Chopper, man, I haven't forgotten Drum Island, dude. I will forever feel so much for this guy. And Chopper really stepped up. I forgot who he was battling. I think it was Gidatsu or one of the vassals, and he's like, you know what, I gotta man up, I'm gonna be a pirate, I'm sick of running, I'm sick of being scared, I have to raise the pirate flag, it's time for me to raise the pirate flag. And calling back to Drum Island when Luffy held it up, that was a brilliant line, and it got me. When fights have moments like this, that's when Oda really sells them to me. If it's more just like a power battle with not much story attached to it, I can tune out a little bit, especially when I'm reading manga. If I'm not seeing it animated, my brain just kind of shuts down sometimes a little bit with all the panels. I find it hard to sort of track the movements at times, but I look for those story beats interwoven throughout the fight, so I love that with Chopper. When Skypiea really came together for me was when it became clear about the history of the Shandians and what they are fighting for, in the history with the Kami and Vas, and how Sky Island was really Jaya that has been launched into the sky. And once Robin is putting together, oh wow, this is the 100 years of lost history, and we're getting clues about the poneglyphs. And once all of that started to come together, the whole arc just really clicked for me, and I was so invested from then on out. And I feel like Oda did a fantastic job of building up Enel as this impossible to beat villain, and I liked how he sort of played with the idea of God and what it really takes to be considered a god by a populace. And honestly, his powers, he literally is lightning. He can smite anyone because he can use his mantra powers to hear all conversations, and his electricity powers to hear all conversations and know where everyone is and hear the voices. And this dude pretty much hosts his own battle royale. He doesn't even care. He's so far beyond whatever's going on in this place. He's just ascended his own mind to think he's better and beyond everything else that is happening. So let the minions play, let the plebs fight each other. Like, who's actually going to give me some sort of challenge in life? And I found that to be a very interesting concept. Like, how much power can you have does it automatically turn you into this sick person who just plays with everyone? Because where else are you getting your interest in life? What higher thing is there to attain? So I found Enel, whilst like a very like yahaha, like laughing, mustache twirling villain, to have a bit more depth to him, because I can understand how he's gotten to this place as Kami. And I really loved how Oda took the time to say, alright, you know what? The next 5 or 6 chapters are purely a flashback on the story of Noland and Jaya and Kalgara. To me, this is the highlight of the entire Sky Island saga. The story between Noland and Kalgara is probably one of my favorite things in the entire series so far. I just found it so incredibly moving, and I just found it to be such a great insight and look into friendship and loyalty. And you know what I hate in stories? A huge misunderstanding, but it had that, and he did it well. He was able to keep me in a way where I wasn't frustrated by these constant misunderstandings between Kalgara and Noland, because it was just told so fluidly and so seamlessly that I just had to see it through. It really ties together the entire stories of Jaya and Skypiea in such a profound way, and I've never wanted to see someone ring a bell so much in my entire life. And you guys told me about deaths in One Piece, because I kind of criticized that in Alabasta, that Pell didn't die, and you said, you know what, people pretty much die in flashbacks exclusively in the series. I'm glad Noland did die and Kalgara did die eventually, but man, was I not prepared for it. I was not prepared to see it, and just the fact that they never got to see each other again and to ring the bell and to say, I'm right here, oh, it hurts. It hurts. But to know that an entire people have held on to that story from both sides, from Noland's side with his ancestors and the Shandians carrying it on, and we're both reaching this conclusion that we've got to get rid of the Kami, ring the bell, free the people. It was like, once all that came together for me and was established, I fell in love with this arc so much. Speaking of deaths that I wish happened, when Conus's father gets struck by the lightning in his sort of sacrificial moment to try and get information out to the population that Enel is basically a madman, that I wish that was a permanent death. I love a good sacrificial death, but yeah, it would have been quite dark for One Piece, not gonna lie. And this fight between Luffy and Enel was so fantastic. I loved how much it was built up. I love how Luffy was just like, you know what, like, Luffy's not here to save an entire people. He follows very personal stories. He sees a very specific story about a friend of his or someone he's met, and if he doesn't like the way it's gone, or if it hasn't been cleared up, he's like, no, we are clearing this up. Like, my boy Cricket is gonna keep searching for this gold forever, but if we ring this bell, we're going to prove Noland wasn't a liar, and it's all going to come together for my friend. So he's not necessarily like, oh, there's a god destroying the people here. He's following this personal. He's just taken it personal. If he is on your side, he will fight for you, and that's what I love about Luffy. Just seeing his conviction and how motivated he is, and he even gets Nami on board, and Nami on board so much that she's not even worried about the gold, she's just worried about her friends, and I found that to be a fantastic look into her character and how far she's come. Not that she's really ever prioritized gold over all of them, but when stuff gets serious, Nami also does show up. Can you confirm this to me? But I'm pretty sure that Luffy, after he hits Enel for the first time, because he's naturally the enemy of electricity because he's made of rubber, the full page panel of Enel's face is probably the biggest meme moment in One Piece so far. It must be up there on like the meme tier lists. That was beautiful. We kind of just reached that massive conclusion with the giant battle. Robin's able to tell Viper the reason why the Straw Hats are fighting, and he gets behind them so much, and I just love that. And once he realized Noland's ancestors are down there fighting too, man, it just hit perfectly for me. And when that bell rung, I just felt such a great relief off my shoulders. It was such an earned moment, and it was just put together beautifully by Oda. And I guess Enel is just going to live on the moon now forever. That's basically what I've gathered from that. I hope he comes back later, because he's a force to be reckoned with, and I feel like he actually has a bit more to contribute to this story. And as we tie up Skypiea here, it reminded me of the beginning of Jaya, where we got a lot of world building for the greater story at hand. And this is when we realize that Gol D went to Skypiea, wrote a poneglyph message, or at least in that language up there, and Robin has realized that they're all going to combine to make a grand message, and it's got to do with that 100 years of missing history, and she's kind of planning to put them all together and see what his grand message was. I'm calling it now. I bet that still hasn't been like cleared up in the grander story, because I just feel like that's a very long overarching sort of goal that's going to be in the series. I found it quite interesting that the Sky Knight said, you know what, this Monkey D. Luffy guy reminds me a lot of Gol D. and they made the connection with the D in their name, and Robin's like, yeah, there is something about him, hey, I'm quite interested in him. Whatever this will of D is, and I think even Blackbeard mentioned something about if we have enough will, we'd see each other again, or something along those lines. I'm just like, he is dropping little Easter eggs and hints everywhere, but I have not been able to put it together yet. I just love this stuff. Just drip feed it to me and I'll take it all in, and hopefully we can theorize something in the live streams. And like all One Piece arcs, we end with a heartfelt goodbye of all these amazing friends and people we've met along the way. That little kid with the mantra power, Isa, whatever her name is, so adorable. Her friendship with Luffy and how she's like, I want to be like him. Like, all this little stuff, all these little relationships that are formed, and when they leave, it just hit me right there. And I just found there to be so much heart in Skypiea. I just kind of wish it came together a little sooner in the arc, and that sort of long stretch of fight scenes was maybe a tad bit shorter. But dude, this was released like 20 years ago, who cares? It's fine. I'm gonna be fine. What I really enjoyed, I read one more chapter than actually when the arc finishes, but as they're going down in the octopus balloon and Robin looks up and she's like, man, it looks so far away now. It feels like a dream. All those people. And I don't know why necessarily, but that moment and that panel and when they're all looking up, I just feel like in that moment, One Piece kind of clicked for me in some way that I can't necessarily describe fluently right now. But just a sense of adventure, remembering the people we've met, and knowing that there's so much more to go. I just really felt quite attached to the Straw Hats in that moment, and I just thought, I don't know, it was just a special moment for me. I don't know why. I thought I'd mention it. And yeah, those are my overall thoughts. I know I've missed a lot. I know for sure I've missed a lot. That's what the live streams are for. We can talk about all the things I didn't mention, and I have so many notes that I couldn't even touch on here. I'm so keen to talk to you all about that this weekend. Now, as for what I'm doing next, I know everyone says watch the G8 anime filler arc, and I did begin that yesterday. I don't know. I trust people when they say it's good. But just knowing that it's purposely going in a detour when I could just read the manga and see what Oda did, I just kind of want to keep reading the manga, because I know the Water 7 saga is meant to be like absolutely goated, and I just kind of want to get there and see what it's all about. Like, I just want to continue the adventure. So if you really think I should do G8, I'll take your advice. And I will watch it at some point, but I kind of just want to go on to the next manga arc. Let me know what you think about that. Honestly, One Piece just keeps delivering, and it just feels like we're just getting started, which is the most exciting part. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear my thoughts and to follow me on my journey. I'll see you guys this weekend, and after that, I'll see you in the next One Piece video. Hope you're all well, and thank you for being here.